can see my face, and
Okay.
I'm not going to share anything from my screen. Nice to meet you guys. Thank you for being here. My name is Julie Schaefer, and like Kat, I am an online coach. I primarily work with women who are looking to lose fat, recomposition their physique, and just create foundational habits around food and movement. And I had my own journey to becoming healthy, and a couple years ago, that really kind of took a halt. I was doing everything that I thought was right, and I still felt like crap. So my first experience kind of stepping into, wow, being healthy is so much beyond just what you eat and how you move, was 4 years ago. I started experiencing these really odd headaches, and I call them headaches, but it wasn't my head. It was my nose and my teeth that like ached, and it really didn't make sense. And there was no amount of like Aleve or ibuprofen that I could take that would make them go away, which, trust me, I tried. I took it all day, every day, which was not great for my gut. But anyway, so I went to a general doctor, and they're like, hey, you know, eat better and exercise. And I was like, wow, I already do that. Thank you. I went to the dentist. I went to the ENT. I went to the chiropractor. And no one really had answers for me. And I finally found a post on Instagram that led me to breast implant illness. So I got my breast implants removed. Quick fix. I mean, I made the call. I got the appointment 2 weeks later, they were out, and I felt a lot better for about a year and a half. And then 9 months ago, all my symptoms came back plus some. So I had the headaches again, the very specific like teeth and nose aches. My hair was falling out. I noticed I was having like really, really bad anxiety to the point where when I would meet someone new, I would like forget my name. It was like kind of relearning social skills all over again. I was gaining weight, and that was a huge blow to my ego, because I'm like, I'm a freaking health coach. I'm supposed to help people like be their healthiest self. What is going on with me? So probably about 30 different symptoms that I started experiencing. Probably the worst was the brain fog. I just really couldn't think straight. Couldn't absorb new information, and just felt like I was really losing a lot of myself. Bad bloating. I was starting to fart more than my husband. It was just, and he's very smelly, let me tell you. So it was embarrassing, and it was very scary. So Kat, next, do you want me to talk about kind of what's going on, you know, with the day-to-day, how some of those symptoms kind of show up?
Yeah, I think go into that and then kind of drop the ball and say what it actually is.
Yeah, I'm going to drop the bomb here. Yeah, the big one. So, you know, right now I am on a healing journey. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a bit. But these symptoms really started affecting every aspect of my life. You know, like Kat, I run my business online, and you guys see her showing up on Instagram every day, like spewing motivation, just showing like she's walking the walk. And I was not doing that anymore. I felt like I couldn't get out of bed. I didn't want to show my face. I was puffy. I look 8 months pregnant all the time. And it was just like, you know what, this is really getting in the way of not only how comfortable I am with my husband, how comfortable I am leaving the house, but how I operate and run my business. Yeah, absolutely. And I was like kind of just watching everybody else like live their life and go out and have fun. And I'm like, why can't I be normal? And, you know, we'll talk more about that too. But so I found this amazing integrative health practitioner online. And within like 5 minutes of talking, she was like, I know what's wrong with you. And she had me run some tests. And it turns out I have toxic mold poisoning from the house that I lived in for 20 years. I lived in my mom's basement. It was damp, it was moldy. Like, yeah, in the summer, my jeans would grow mold and my shoes would be moldy, and I'd throw them out and be like, oh, this is annoying. But I had no idea that that air was poisoning me. You know, when you think about mold, its primary job is to decompose its surroundings. So when you have that in your internal ecosystem, it affects every system in your body. It affects your limbic system, how you behave, your personality, you know, which makes sense. I felt like I was losing my personality. It affects your digestive system. It affects your respiratory system. It affects your nervous system. It really affects everything. So yeah, toxic mold. So anyway, the point with that is too, that being healthy is a lot more than just like the food that you put in your body and the way that you move. It's also like the air you're breathing, the water you're drinking, what you're putting on your skin. And in addition to that, that mold caused a yeast overgrowth in my gut. So I have that. That then led to hypothyroidism. So, you know,
Jeez.
gut health is highly connected to hormone health. And then with the tests we run, we also learned that I have heavy metal toxicity. So that's likely from deodorant I was using, you know, meal prepping in plastic, eating out of plastic, certain protein powders, things like that.
So when you were talking to her, like on that initial like consult, whatever, she knew from the symptoms you were describing that that's what it was?
Yeah, I told her really it was like the headache, the nose and the teeth. And she was like, oh girl, you have mold. And it was like this light bulb went off and I was like, yes, I do. Like in my gut, I just knew.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, and she ran something called a mycotox profile. And so you basically like urinate in a cup, they send it off to the lab and they're able to see how many mycotoxins you have in your body that you're metabolizing. And so there's many different types of mold. Like there are certain foods that grow mold. I didn't have any of the mold that comes from food. I had this specific black mold that comes from water damaged buildings.
Oh my gosh. So you were living in the house for 20 years, you know, do you feel like some of those symptoms were starting to arise and then maybe you thought it was that breast implant illness, or were they just kind of both together? Maybe like,
no, you nailed it. I thought it was the breast implant illness. And mold gets misdiagnosed a lot. Like it hides under Lyme disease, it hides under fibromyalgia. So there's a lot of things that it shows up similar to. So when I read all the symptoms that people were experiencing with breast implant illness, I was like, oh, I have that. And I got my breast implants out and that relaxed my body, right? That was a foreign object that was removed. So my body was like, okay, we can chill for a bit. But that only lasted for so long until the issue just came back and kind of bubbled to the surface.
So she did testing. Did she just do the micro toxicity profile, or what other types of tests did you get ran to kind of find all these other things out, like the hypothyroidism, the heavy metal toxicity? What all was ran?
Yeah, so with the mycotox profile in that same urine analysis, she also ran an oats test, which is an organic acids test, and that can see like your gut health status, you know, where your bacterial like microbiome is at, and that's what showed the candida overgrowth. It also took me through like my Krebs cycle, so that's how we discovered that I'm catabolic. I'm not producing ATP, so I have no recovery ability, which is why I would work out and I do like a 10-minute body weight workout, guys. Like I would probably do your warm up that Kat has you doing and I would feel like physically bruised to the touch for days. Jeez. So I just had no recovery in place either. And then we also discovered through that same test that I am something called a fast oxidizer. So children from like birth to age 10 are fast oxidizers, the way they oxidize their food and energy. And we want to be a mixed oxidizer. If we were slow, that's like when you get into your 60s, 70s. So I'm fast. So the way like, and I essentially had ketones in my urine, like as if I was in ketosis, but I was eating like 300 grams of carbs a day. And so it was like my body wasn't utilizing those carbs.
Crazy.
Crazy,
oh my
right?
Gosh.
Yeah, and I thought I was doing everything right. So she also ran a hair tissue mineral analysis, and that's how we found out about the heavy metals. And we also discovered I have like no vitamins and minerals, so my body's just depleted of those. So very weakened immune system. Taylor, you asked how quickly did you feel better after moving out of that environment? So that's a really good question because I actually moved out of that environment 9 months ago into a house with my husband. And that is when my health started decreasing. So we are currently testing our current house to see if it has mold. So that would be a huge bummer, but we know that it's from my former house just because of me experiencing those symptoms years ago. So, but a lot of times people can feel immediately better after they leave like a mold sick environment. So like animals, for example, like our dog started showing some symptoms. So that's another reason why we're getting the house that we currently live in tested. We actually should have the results this week. I'm really excited.
I hope you don't. My goodness.
I know. And you know, because you will not get better if you stay in that environment. So yeah.
Well, it's oh, I don't know. I just started there. It's interesting because my boyfriend also works in real estate, and he does like fixing up houses, and he like wholesales them, fixer uppers. And we were talking, because I was talking about your case, like your situation. And I was like, you know, how do you find that in houses? And, you know, what do people do about that? He's like, you will not ever guess how expensive that is, and how many apartment complexes, how many houses for rent that just cover that shit up. Yep. Because it's cheaper to cover it up than to get rid of all the mold in there. So yeah. I had no idea about that either. And I was like, holy shit, like, can you imagine how many people are really, really sick right now? And they wouldn't even know where to look at it, because if you look at their basement, you wouldn't see it. It's hidden.
Yeah. Or it's like, hey, my house is only 10 years old. There's no reason it's moldy. Right. Or that it would be moldy. Like the current one that we're in is 15 years old. But even certain woods, in the way that they like, I can't remember the name of it, but like compact and just like shed wood up and then put it together. It just is like the perfect environment to grow molds. Like drywall is the perfect environment because it's spongy. It's like, you know, has that permeability basically. And you don't have to physically see it for it to be there. If you see it, it's bad.
Okay, so that's when it's like,
yeah, that's okay. Like you need to go. And then of course is remediation, but there are also some environments where it's like, you just got to get out. And that basement was one of them. There's no hope for that basement.
No. Does your mom still currently live there?
She does. And my sister is renting that basement right now.
So and what are they like? Like, you know, are they going through anything, or has nothing presented yet for them?
Nothing is presented yet. And nothing presented in my husband, who lived there with me for 3 years. So everybody's different. Now, that's not to say that mold in any degree is healthy, right? It's not to say, oh, like, I don't feel it, I'm fine.
Yeah.
It's time to build up. That's like saying, oh, I ate a slice of pizza, I didn't get fat. It's fine, you know? Which is true, right? That was probably a poor comparison.
But if you had pizza every single day, that shit would add up.
Exactly. So if you're breathing that environment daily, that's building up in your system. And, you know, they say that men typically don't present with mold or have as hard of a time with it because they have higher testosterone. They just have better immunity in that way. But yeah, no one else in my family ever presented any issues with that.
I just thought of another question, and because I know you said you have a lot going on here, like yeast overgrowth, heavy metal toxicity, hypothyroid, mold toxicity. You're not producing any more ATP. So what is your protocol right now? If you're working with somebody, like, what do you do? Which one do you knock out first?
So we started with a functional medicine detox, and that was really to support phase 1 and 2 of liver detoxification, which if you're living in this century, which you all are, you're breathing this air, you're drinking this water, our liver needs support, right? So that was the first thing we had to tackle, is if we were to try to like take the trash out essentially by getting these issues out of my body, but my liver wasn't functioning optimally, it's like throwing things in a trash bag and then setting it at a locked door. It just wasn't gonna get out. So we started with that. And right now I'm currently in an 8-week candida protocol to get rid of the yeast. And then I'll move into a 6-week candida bacterial optimizer protocol. And then I'll move into 8-week mold protocol, and then 6-week heavy metal. And then I'll go back to mold because it takes multiple rounds to remove the mold. So I've got really the next like 18 to 24 months mapped out of being on a protocol to get rid of the problems.
Now, does that make you feel relieved, or like, what do you feel about that?
It
having
depends on the day. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Thank you for asking. It depends on the day. Some days
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I got this. I'm going to come out on the other side of this thriving. I'm going to be glad I poured this amount of time into myself. And then there are other times where I'm like, this freaking sucks.
Mm-hmm.
So, it depends on the day, but I'm feeling hopeful today. I'm
Yeah.
feeling hopeful today.
No, you need to have more days like that. But I understand. I was just thinking of, thinking ahead of time. You're like, wow, this is the next 18 or more months of my life. I have to be, and you have to be in a strict protocol. So I was just kind of wondering your mindset of that, of, do you feel relieved that you have answers? Because I think that is also empowering, that, oh, I have answers and we have a plan. So that is sometimes very meaningful, but just kind of wanted to touch on, like, how are you actually like doing with this? This is a lot. It's a lot. And I don't know anybody else going through this. So you're the first person.
Yeah. And it's crazy. I didn't really know anyone else going through it either. And now my world has been opened up. Like I'm going down the like mold toxicity hashtag, like rabbit hole on Instagram. And it's like, oh my, there are thousands of people that are dealing with this. It's just not something that's discussed. And it is, I think, and I'm sure, depending on what you all are going through in your process with Kat, like it does require you to kind of shift your lifestyle. And there are people that won't understand. And there are people that are like, are you sure this is real? Or shouldn't you go to a doctor instead? Or, my mom said that to me. It was like, you think I'd be in this position if I had gone to the doctors and they knew what was going on? So yeah, I mean, it's interesting and it's definitely not talked about. And sometimes it makes people uncomfortable because, it's just not discussed a lot.
Yeah. And here's the thing, maybe you even did go to the doctors and your symptoms were dismissed. You were talking about all these things that are bothering you. This is what's been going on, and you were dismissed. And that happened to me. I tried to do the Western medicine, like, all right, let's go get my labs done. Let's do the right thing, right? Be initiative for my health. And labs were pulled at my request, but they came back normal, and not enough labs were pulled. Right. Normal. Not enough was even pulled to tell a story of what is going on. And then my symptoms were dismissed. They're like, oh, you're fine. No more follow-up here. Click, make payment. You got it. See you maybe 6 months from now. And I knew, and yourself best of like, no, just something's not right. So I shouldn't still be feeling off. So I really do, I love Western medicine for some purposes. I worked in healthcare. Like I was there, I saw it. But I do think when you really have to do something like mold toxicity, who would have ever thought? Doctors, like, they would not even give you the answer, but you had to go a different route and not take no for an answer and still keep diving into what is going on. And that's crazy, but that's how active you have to be in your health and well-being.
Yes, absolutely. And it can be tough because I really didn't know for a while what questions to ask or what, like, blood work was not going to figure this out, right? I didn't know that there was such thing as a mycotox profile, or that I could cut off some of my hair and send it into a lab and they could be like, yeah, you got heavy metals, So it really took a lot of digging and working with the right individual that was willing to do like the unconventional. Because the unconventional is generally what's going to get you the answers.
Yeah. Their mission is really find the root to your issue, and then the rest can go on top of that. But I like how you're kind of talking about your protocol is, no, you need to first take care of the liver, because even if we fix up all these outside things, that's still not going to be registered properly if my liver is not functioning at its best. So that's exactly what I hope to get. So my functional medicine doctor, I'm a little bit upset with them right now. My Dutch test came back and I had to call the office to see if it was there. And they said, yeah, we have your test, but your doctor only works 2 times a month. So the next time we can get you in to discuss your labs is May 26th. I was like, no, like, send me my labs. I'll get them. I'll read them myself, or I'll send them to like my mentors to help read them. But I was like, you cannot have me just sitting here on edge for another month to figure out what's going on. And ultimately, I just want to know like my ratio of my sex hormones. That's really what I'm looking for to kind of help out. Like, what do I do next? Do I get DIM or do I get progesterone cream? Like, I'm trying to like decide myself on where I want to go with it. But it is frustrating. And I think it's very frustrating. This could be related to all of you guys in your health journeys, where things aren't showing up for you physically how you want it. things aren't presenting like how they used to. And it takes a long time in order to get yourself to feel good. Like these things take a while. And in her case, like she's now looking at who knows how long until things start showing up better and better for her. But it is the hope that each day she's a little bit better, whether that's mental clarity, just little things she can just like celebrate the wins on. Because if you're just waiting for something to show up physically, you're going to be disappointed. And that shit can take forever until you finally feel like, oh, I'm good here. Like, this is happy for me.
Absolutely. And, you know, it is hard on the ego. And in this space, with this type of healing, and this doesn't just apply to me, this applies to anybody. Like, you could have upregulated adrenals. Like, I've got that. If you're highly stressed, success here looks like failure from what you're used to things knowing. So training less, eating more, resting more, those things feel like failure, but that's actually exactly what you need to see success. So it's kind of like unlearning everything that you knew to be true.
That is so true.
Yeah. And when you get to this place, like it's obvious, like you've already tried all the things on your own and then you asked for help. And it's hard to be like, well, like, this is what I read I should do, or I should just like exercise more if I want to lose weight, or I should just like cut my calories. It's like, you got to do the opposite. And it's tough, but like, it'll be worth it. 2 years, I'm going to be on this.
No, that is so true though. I was just thinking about that today of like, I had all these hardwired beliefs, right? Like I kind of talked about it in my post today, but I didn't really get to say everything I wanted to, but it's just like, I was so hardwired that more is better. Like, because I was also applauded for that. I was applauded for working harder for workouts. I was applauded for getting in more reps, like pushing my body here and there, training when I didn't need to be training. I was applauded for that. So to break that mindset of like more is better, it's so hard. And that literally takes a day-to-day thing too, of like rewinding and like breaking those beliefs that I thought of like, this is how it had to be. And like you said, take more rest days. Like that is so hard for me, so hard. But it's something I've ingrained in myself of like, well, if you're not like training every day, you're getting worse. And that's just like so bad, but it takes a lot of work. So I try to tell myself that my walking is like my workout. And I honestly do think steps help. Like if I'm keeping track of my steps in a way that's me accomplishing something, and I can be like, yeah, that was my like workout today, was getting my steps in. And that's kind of how I have to like frame it for myself to still meet my ego and my identity. I don't know.
Yeah, little mindset shift. And, you know, we like to be working towards something or knowing that we're working towards something. And when you're working on the internal and you're not necessarily getting that thing that shows up that's like, hey, you did it, you kind of need like something to check off, you know? So whether it's, hitting a certain amount of steps a day or drinking a certain amount of water or sleeping X amount of hours a night, like 8 should be the minimum, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, so those things are good to like have in your like tool belt.
Yeah. And think of like when we were younger though, and I just think back to like high school. I remember I always loved sleep. And my boyfriend at the time, he'd be like, you can sleep when you're dead. Like, I remember him always saying that shit, or like, he's like, I don't want to miss out on sleep. Like, I want to make memories, like all that shit. Like I would try to like talk myself out of like going to sleep early so I can make more memories. And I don't really know. Did I make more memories? Yeah. But also like, I still loved my sleep. I didn't do it all the time, but think of how much that's like hardwired into us. Like you can sleep when you're dead, like grind, no days off.
No excuses, all of that. Yeah, absolutely. Or like, we always have to be productive. You know, it's like, I notice it in myself. Like when I was the functional medicine detox that I did, we had to do 3 weeks of fasting for 65 consecutive hours. And then once we could eat, it was like a mineral shake in the morning, a vegetarian lunch, and a paleo dinner. And I couldn't really eat things that excited me. And it made me realize, especially on the fasting days, how much I would use like food or workouts or things as a distraction. And it forced me to really slow down and be with myself. And I'm telling you, I cried more in those like 65 hours of fasting than I've cried probably in the whole year prior, because I had to really slow down and like be with myself and think about all these things I was like avoiding. And it just really opened my eyes, all the ways that I like distract myself from my my problems. And I think that society kind of perpetuates that. Like, we always have to be productive. We always have to be doing something. It's like, when was the last time you just sat down and like, you just existed? You know, so that's something I need to continue to work on. But
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So you felt like you were using workouts and even like planning meals or thinking of meals. Were those distractions, or?
I had never thought that I used food or workouts as a distraction, but you know, the way that it's like, it kind of, I don't want to say it filled my day, but it was a focal point of my day, you know, and like, oh, I'm going to eat this, or, oh, I'm going to plan my macros, you know, and just like sitting down and eating. And then, okay, once I'm done eating, then I'll watch the show, and then I'll go do this, and then I'll go do this, and never really like sat down, focused on like actually eating the food in front of me slowly, or sat down and just like existed. It's like I always had to kind of be doing something. Even if those things were healthy things, it was always something that was stopping me from just like being silent with myself, essentially.
So during this protocol, are you able to work out right now?
No.
So what are you doing for that aspect? Like, I just trying to think, like maybe yoga or stretching. Is that kind of all you're allowed to do, or how does that look?
Yeah. So I can stretch, I can do yoga, I go on walks daily, and that's actually part of my protocol, is a daily outdoor walk, at least one. If I can do two, that's even better. It's more time in the sunshine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so sometimes I'll do like just some body weight mobility work. It depends. But to be completely honest, like my energy for it isn't even there. Like it's been 4 months since I touched a weight, and I was really like upset about it at first, but now I've kind of embraced that. And I'm like, I can't even imagine lifting a weight right now. Like, I don't even, you know, and one day I'll get back there. But right now, it's just, everything's kind of flip-flopped from what I thought was like the right thing to do.
Yeah. And I wonder if, like, I know your body's kind of healing through a lot of stuff. So fatigue isn't going to be a big factor too, but what if your body really wants you fatigued so you don't exercise, so you don't put yourself down a worse like tunnel? I don't know. Your body's kind of smart like that.
Oh yeah, our body is brilliant and will really communicate with us when something is going on. And that's another aspect of like,
what the? Oh, sorry. He just popped up out of nowhere.
I love it. Yeah, so I lost my train of thought, but just your body communicating with you. Yeah. And after the functional medicine detox, part of that as well was like opening that door for our bodies to say like, hey, I don't like this. So after that detox, it was like, I tried to eat beans and I like exploded. It was like, oh, beans don't work. You know, like last night I had some sweet potato that I've had sweet potato every day since because it's one of the like 5 starches I can have. And like immediately my stomach was like, nope, don't like this. And so it's just being open to like listening to what your body is trying to communicate with you. And, like I'm craving fats more than I'm craving carbs, and like kind of leaning into that. So yeah, our bodies are smarter than we are.
It's interesting. I mean, maybe you're craving fats because of this whole ATP thing. I don't know. I think our bodies are so smart, which is why like hypothyroidism, I talked to them about it. You know, when you diet like time after time again, like that down regulates, like it does. And it kind of makes you, and I always use this example, and you probably heard this from Sam, but he's like, it makes you ugly and unattractive because it doesn't want you, like if your body's so unhealthy, it's not getting energy, your sex hormones, they drop, like you can't procreate it. Your body doesn't want you to. You don't even have enough energy for yourself. How could you possibly put energy into sex or even
a living being? You're supposed to care for. 100%.
Exactly. And fatigue is a big thing with that too. So it's like, it makes sense. Like your body doesn't have any energy available. So it's not going to give you any motivation or any sort of energy to go to the gym. It's like, just don't do anything. Can you please just sit here since you're not giving me calories? Like, I'm just going to let you just sit here.
Exactly. Like, just hibernate, please. Like, need to make it to the next winter. Like, come on.
Yeah. So I think that's it's so interesting. Like when you talk about all this stuff, it's like, oh, I wonder if this is why or that is why. But Wow. I thought of a question while you were talking to a while ago, and you said that you weren't really absorbing much nutrients, like no vitamins, no minerals, so very malnourished. Now, you were on, or not you were on, you had breast implants, but what about birth control?
So my experience with birth control, I actually started birth control when I was 14.
Mm-hmm.
So, and not because I was sexually active, but because
Right.
my periods were very heavy and very frequent. So I would bleed about 2 weeks out of every month, sometimes 2.5 weeks. And this was I think it was freshman year in high school. We switched to block schedule. So it was like classes were going to be like 2 hours plus. And I couldn't make it 2 hours without going to the bathroom
And changing.
and changing. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was terrified because I had bled through my pants at school dozens of times. And I'll, kind of jump back and say like that heavy and frequent period was likely the start of the mold and the inflammation in my body. So that was really like written off as so normal. My doctor was like, here's this pill, that'll make it better. Oh, you get really bad cramps and you're bleeding all the time. Like, here, take this. 14 years old. So I was on, and I thought it was the best thing ever because I could like,
oh yeah,
skip my period. And I'm like, I'm just not gonna have my period for 3 months because it's summer. I want to go to the pool and I have concerts to go to. And
and you know what? And I talked about this last week. I think your friends like applauded you too for that. They're like, "Oh my gosh, you're so lucky you don't have your period."
Exactly. So yeah, and I mean, so I loved it at the time. I did go off of birth control, I want to say at 21, maybe 20. And it wasn't health related at all. At that point in my life, I was not a healthy individual.
Mm-hmm.
I was taking a lot more pills than just birth control. That's what I'll say. So I was not a healthy individual. But I couldn't get the generic form of the birth control anymore. I think I was taking like Yaz and they kept like switching things. And so every month it was over $100 and I just
oh my gosh,
couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
But it did take close to like 5 years for my period to get back to what it was. So like I had a very light period after birth control, if I even did have one, which again, I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
But then when it did come back, it came back powerful and painful and none of the issues, obviously, like there were signs of some hormonal issues I wasn't aware of. Birth control didn't solve it and they didn't solve themselves.
Mm-hmm. So you were on it, what, 6 years?
Yeah, like 7 years. Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. Did you ever consider like, I don't know, I guess when was like the worst symptoms that started happening? Was it while you were living in that house or not until after?
Not until after. But that's another thing to keep in mind is that like we're constantly adding drops in the bucket of stress, right? And it just takes one extra drop for that bucket to overflow. So while the symptoms really truly presented themselves in a like I cannot function like this kind of way, like it was building for years. Mm-hmm. So like, if you have acne, it's not from like something you did yesterday, right? It's like likely an issue in your gut or your hormones that's been like formulating for a while. And so when we moved into this house, which if it's not mold related from this house, it's likely stress related because at that time bought a house, invested a lot of money in IFCA, started really going all in on my business, working like really, really hard. I got COVID in September and had it terribly. It took me like a month to get better, but I had it terribly because my immune system was already shot.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it was a long time in the making, and all it took was like one final thing to kind of send it over and for my body to be like, yo, I'm pissed off and you need to start paying attention.
That's a lot of stressful things.
Yeah,
that's a lot. So, and well, oh shoot, I just went like blank real quick. Oh yeah, I was going to say, and like you don't even know what's going on at that point either. Like, so that's still super stressful. It's like you have all this going on and you don't know what's wrong with you. That can be so stressful. And then not to mention when you do find it out, paying for functional medicine is kind of expensive. All the tests that you have to order, like it is kind of expensive.
Very much so. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a lot. Well, thank you for sharing all this.
Thank you for listening.
Am I missing a question? I feel like there was something else I wanted to
let's
ask.
see. We did say, you know, just like, yeah, struggles of the waiting game. We talked a bit about that. You know, yeah, how bad I wish I could like click my heels and be back to normal again. And that's another thing, you know, that I want to mention. As I had said before, if something is presenting itself as whether it's weight loss resistance, whether it's feeling really lethargic and fatigued, whether, you know, it's your hair falling out, whatever it is, again, it didn't happen overnight. It was years of building up. So let's say it's like 7 to 8 years of the issue building over time. If it only takes me 2 years to get better, that's still a fraction of how long it took me to get here, right?
Yeah.
So it took me, 20 some odd years to get sick. And if it can take me just 2 years to get better, and then I can learn the tools that it takes to keep myself healthy for the rest of my life, then that is absolutely going to be worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I like to. Yeah, I like to mention that for like women that come to me. They're like, well, you know, I want to lose this fat right now. Like I want to get back to what I used to be right now. And it might take a while. Like it really does. And it's hard to sit with that of like, well, shit, I don't know when things are going to start showing up for me. But like you said, when you're dealing with internal stuff going on, like essentially these diet after diet you're doing, and whether you knew you were dieting or not, like that puts you deeper down a hole. And sometimes this might be the moment where you're seeing the repercussions from years of this in the making. Just like what you said, like this stuff takes time to build up and then people want to wish it away. And that's the hard part that you really have to work through is like, okay, this is going to take time and I need to be patient with myself because you don't want to dig yourself back to where you were.
Absolutely. And, you know, if this was something where I could just like take a couple supplements and be like cured from mold, like, well, I'd probably do it. But like, then what's to say, like, what would prevent me from, you know, just putting myself in the same position? Because I'd be like, well, it'll only take like taking this a couple times and I'll be fine. Mm-hmm. Right. So, like if we were to diet and it didn't have repercussions, then we would just like continue doing that. Oh, well, I can just do that again real quick. And like, it'll only take me a month to recover from this, whatever, you know? So it's like that longevity, there's like purpose in that. There's purpose in that pain. And it's going to keep you from like putting yourself in this position again. So
that's a really good point.
As much as it sucks, there's a reason for it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think that's why like competing, I've really turned my head to it of, you know, I don't think I ever want to do it again. I feel like I can strongly say that, even though I just said I think. But I do know for like what I've been dealing with is not something I want to endure again. And the next time it would probably be even double like of what I'm going through. So do I want to risk doing that again for what? Like, I'm not going to turn pro in one show. Like, it's not going to happen. And like, that's just kind of where I sat with that is like exactly what you said, like, being in pain, like, you know, you don't want to feel this again. So, you know, do you go back into the same thing and do what you did before? No, like, exactly. I don't want to.
And now you get to share that with other women, like the ones who are here now, and say like, hey, I went through that pain for years. And if I can cut your journey short just a little bit and stop you now so that you can recover and get to a healthier place, like, I'll do it. Right. Yeah. So it's worth it in that way, even if it's at our expense, it's worth it like for our clients.
Because our experience definitely like helps us shed light on other things. I would have never known about hormone fluctuations and what long-term dieting can do had I not experienced this myself. Wouldn't have been talking about the things that I talk about. If I could rewind a year and a half ago, I wasn't talking about this shit. I wasn't talking about hormones because I didn't know, because I didn't experience it myself. Yeah, exactly. It's just crazy.
Yeah. And then, you know, the women that are here now, y'all can be trailblazers for the people in your life. Because you might have friends right now who are dieting no problem and they're dropping weight and you might be jealous, or they're, you know, like reaching their body composition goals quicker, right? And not that I wish ill on anybody, but if they continue down that path repeatedly, it will just be a matter of time until they're in a position where they're up against weight loss resistance or dealing with hormonal imbalances and having to do the slower work and the harder work that y'all might be doing now.
Exactly. That's a really good point. I was gonna say there's like times where, you know, you might be hanging out with your friend, you're like, gosh, Stacy can eat pizza and like I can't. Like, how can she eat all this? Like, and I can't. If I even look at pizza, I get fat. Like like that will not to like wish, like you said, wish ill on that person, but potentially like, yeah, if she keeps that up because she keeps thinking she's gonna get away with it, it's gonna show up eventually, just like alcohol, right? You drink on the weekend and you wake up and you're feeling lighter, you're like, whoa, that wasn't that bad for me. You repeat it again and again and again. Yeah, it's starting to get bad. So it's just a really cool thing that you are going through this, to be honest. Like, I would not have you talking to them if I didn't think your story was interesting. And exactly like you said, it's kind of a domino effect of them being able to understand this and hear that this could be something. So don't, be so closed-minded that it couldn't be mold. That's probably the last thing you ever thought it would be. And it took you a while to find that answer. So it's just more insight on, there's a lot of shit out there that can mess with us. I've talked about plastic before, like what we put in our skincare products and all this, like this correlates too. It's crazy.
100%. And that isn't meant to like breed fear. It's just meant to like bring awareness and be like, hey, and if you're ever shamed for like what you're eating or how you're living or anything, like I think it's just a matter of time until every coach out there is like doing what you're doing, Kat. Like it's just a matter of time because more things are coming to the surface where it's like, oh shoot, it's not just all about like dieting and cardio and whatnot. And like it actually does matter when your ingredient list is like a paragraph long on your like protein powder and things like that. So it's just a matter of time until all of that is going to be more mainstream. And y'all are just probably, some of the lucky ones to hear about it first.
Yeah. And you get to help other people struggling too. But I was going to say, I agree with that. I agree that there's more and more coaches that are talking about these things. I also think more and more people are being aware, like we're seeing things show up for us that we haven't really seen before. Birth control's been around for a long time. And I will say now it's kind of a hot topic. So is leaky gut. Like these things are starting to be a very big hot topic. Maybe just for me, because I'm seeing this all the time in my feed, because that's what I pay attention to. But I do think it is popping up a lot more and people are being more aware of like things going on, things to be aware of. We're getting like more and more populated here, like as the minute goes on, which is more and more environmental toxins, just like, I don't know. I had a thought of like, how do you even like eliminate all that? Like you have to literally get your own land, get your own like farming stuff, your own animals, like you gotta to like really eliminate everything from our food products too. Is like you got to be a farmer.
Yeah. And and that's another thing where like that can overwhelm you if you think about it in that way. Like my husband and I are like, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna live in a metal house? Like how are we gonna avoid mold again? And it's like, well, you can't. You just have to manage it. So while it's like toxins are everywhere, yes, it's true. Like on one side, that's not reason to be like, well, I can't avoid it. I'm just gonna lean into it. Right? And that's also not reason to like be living in fear, right? You just have to like find that middle ground and like manage.
Yeah. I was going to say, if you guys want to follow her, she does share her like experience day to day. I loved the most, well, when you shared you recording a video. So she actually put this on her story. I think it was last week. So she was filming a video to put on her Instagram story, and she actually had captions to of like what she was saying. And then she showed like where she went off, where she just had the brain fog, where it just didn't make sense. And she shared that. She was like, hey, I just want to show you, like, I tried to post this. I was like, really wanting to be like, show up on my Instagram for everyone. And this is actually how it turned out. This is how I sound. This is how my thoughts went. And I thought that was so powerful for you to share. It's very, very hard to be vulnerable. And it's, as a coach, we are looked at as perfect, right? we're looked at as we're perfect, and we're not. And I love how you are sharing, this is hard. Like, this is what I'm dealing with, and I'm still trying to be here to support my clients, to educate and help other people. But hey, this is what happens. That was crazy to see.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Definitely. And I try to always keep it real, because I'll tell you, like, months ago when this was really at its peak and coming to fruition, I was terrified. I hid. I didn't go on camera. I just tried to keep it like, yeah, everything's cool. I'm great.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, I'm like sobbing, can't get out of bed, miserable, and so it's like, you know what, I'm not going to deny this as not being my journey right now. I'm going to embrace it, and I'm going to bring you along for the ride. And I've gotten unfollows for it. Like, I don't care. It's fine.
Yeah.
Now, this is me right now. So
That's awesome. Well, I love you sharing all this. And I think I have one more question. So you're looking at a projection of 18 to 24 months. So what does your day-to-day look like right now, and how you're kind of allowing yourself to heal your body?
yeah. So I don't wake up with an alarm anymore. I just let myself wake up when I wake up. Some days that's 7:30 in the morning. Some days it's 10 a.m. Like, I just let myself sleep. And then this is really funny. I wake up, I brew coffee for a coffee enema, and I do a coffee enema every morning.
Wait,
I don't drink coffee. I
what
do a coffee
is,
enema.
so that's putting it in your butt?
Yeah. Yeah. And the purpose for
Okay.
very resistant when my coach suggested, and I call her coach, but she's a practitioner, suggested that I do this. The purpose of it is, well, it doesn't penetrate your transverse colon, so you don't get the caffeinated effect. What it does is it stimulates the production of glutathione, so your liver's detoxification. And it also can help wipe out candida, which is the yeast overgrowth that I have. So, as odd as it is, it has been incredible. It's really helped with my bloating. I have like seen stuff come out of me that I'm like, what the hell is that? Oh, and I'll do I have to do a parasite cleanse down the line.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Of a parasite. So parasites multiple. So that enema will help with that as well. Because the detox process is not easy. Like, it hurts. Your body's aching. Like, you don't feel good. And so the enema helps with that. And then I make a smoothie. So I have to have a liquid breakfast, take my supplements with that. I usually dive into work, go on a walk, have some lunch, take more supplements. And I really cut my day off as early as I can. And that's another thing, like, this whole process has caused me to like really take a step back, and I'm not growing my business in the way that I maybe want to, but I have to like put that on pause right now and kind of like take on less work and do less, so that I'm not stressed, so that I can actually heal. So, each day looks a little bit different, but it's just kind of about supporting what I need that day and really paying attention to like what my body's communicating with me.
I have a question about the liquid breakfast. What is the benefit of that?
So that is to give your digestion a break. So a lot of us have weakened digestion. If we feel tired after a meal, that's a sign of weakened digestion. Digestion takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of energy. So that's why it's good to like fast overnight, right? Have like a certain amount of hours between meals. Liquid breakfast essentially is so I'm not like putting something heavy on top of a system that's like just waking up.
Interesting. I have heard a lot of that in people's protocols for like gut health. Like, I think Taylor Wellbeing. I don't know if you've heard of her. She's a big.
I work with.
Okay.
Taylor, yeah.
So I see a lot of her clients, and they talk about that too. I think it was. Oh, I can't think of what her name is right now. I'll pull it up later. But it's gonna bother me. I can't think of what her name is. She's out of Cleveland. She's an online coach as well. But she's been sharing her journey with Taylor Wellbeing, and that's probably not her name. I'm just thinking IG wise.
Yeah,
Yeah. So she's been sharing her journey of like the liquid breakfast too. And I was curious on that. And I wondered if that was coupled with fasting, because, you know, sometimes we do say like, yes, your digestion needs a break, but it also needs to be supported with food. So I was just kind of curious on that.
Yeah, so my specific protocol is having 12 hours between like my dinner and breakfast the next morning, but not going past 14 hours because I do have just adrenal maladaptation. So I want to make sure I'm not like running off of stress hormones and going too long without food.
Yeah, I was going to say, because fasting too, like a lot of hypothyroid is, or PCOS is like, you can't fast. Like that's more of a stress to your body. So I like, obviously there's going to be different cases and different scenarios when that's beneficial, but just a reminder to everybody, like this is specific protocol for her and her issues. It's not like, oh, this is helping her, I'm going to do it now.
Right. And there's that fine line. It's like, yes, Julie, you can fast for 12 hours, but not 14. You know, it's like those little things. So you see certain things on Instagram, like, oh, that person's doing this, but they don't include that little stipulation, and you take it at face value. And then, you know, you can end up doing damage. So just those little details. Yeah. Oh, and this is my pill case. So lots of supplements. And it's all natural, you know, just supporting your body to do what it's meant to do naturally.
So are you having to take a lot more supplements just due to the fact of like the malabsorption that you do have? So is there topical agents that you're taking as well, since your body isn't processing it as well?
First I'll say thank you, Taylor. Have fun at volleyball or go coaching. You go, girl. Now I see like the draw and the connection here. That's
thank you. So, she's cute. You. Look at her. Aww.
Sweet. Yeah. So your question was about certain supplements, and then
are you taking a lot? Well, I'm sure there's a lot of different reasons for the supplements, right? But with the malabsorption and your body just not able to digest things as well, are you taking more to support that? Does that help? Because your body's probably not breaking down foods either, which is why you're taking probably mostly liquid foods and intake. But I was wondering about like topical agents as a method for any of the things that you're taking since it.
Yeah, so I'm not doing any topical agents. I'm just doing like capsules and then certain like liquid or sublingual supplements. So like a grapefruit seed extract was something we did for the candida. So that's like, you know, squeeze that in some water and take it. Now I definitely have hormonal imbalances that have come as like the cascade effect from the mold, right? So the mold was the starting issue, and then there's things that have stemmed from that. So what we expect and hope to see is that when the mold is eradicated, like my adrenals will calm, my thyroid will then get back to
it's like everything will just start to slowly fall into place.
Yes. And of course we'll do retesting to see, you know, and make sure that these things are coming back to homeostasis on their own. And then, we're just doing like, you know, B complexes, alkalized C, zinc, you know, all these things that we naturally need in our body and should be able to get from food. I just need them in a more activated and higher like dose, essentially.
Right. And easily digestible too.
Yes, absolutely.
Crazy. Well, I do appreciate you so much coming on here and sharing your story, your experience, because I do think it could benefit some people, and not just like, oh, that they have this, but our paths are similar. My path's similar to yours, and some of my clients' paths might be similar to yours too, as in we're not physically there yet. Things aren't showing up for us right away. And some clients it is, some clients it's not. And I just kind of wanted to put this out there of like, hey, even the people who are coaches are struggling, or even if you are doing everything right and checking off the boxes, there still could be something that needs to be further dived into. And you all can be an advocate for your health. And that's like the biggest key point here is like, just be an advocate for your health. If you know something is off, you're not feeling right, don't take no for an answer. Just continue to dive into it. Even if it is a long recovery process, you'll get to the bottom of it. And I know you will too, but I also wanted to support you. And if they can follow you. So if you can put down your, like, either your link to your Instagram or just your Instagram name or something, just keep following her journey. We can all wish her like support and love, because you guys know what it's like to be alone in your journeys too, and just to continue to support one another.
Yes. And, you know, one thing I'll note too is that part of what led me to discovering what this was being able to be so consistent and developing like foundations in movement and food, right? And then still not feeling well.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times, like, you have to have that consistency to be like, all right, I'm checking the boxes.
Right.
It's still not getting me there.
Still not right. Exactly.
We're all over the place. It's like, how do you get that process of elimination? So that consistency pays off. And then, as Kat said, advocate for yourself. There's a lot of things we've been told that are normal that are not, you know, so trust your gut, advocate for yourself. And thank you for having me. I'm glad
You're so welcome. I love the story. I want to get it out there more. So thank you so much. Julie, can you stay on here so we can chat about the mentorship and other stuff we want to talk about? Everybody else, have a good week.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, Julie. It was so nice to hear your story. I wish you